The Tata Steel Masters has just begun. This annual event that takes place in the Netherlands on the North Sea coast is really one of the highlights of the tournament calendar. The organisers always do a brilliant job of attracting a great lineup, and it's always hotly contested. And this year particularly interesting as there are 4 of the candidates who are taking part. So nice to kind of judge their form. Remember, candidate starts end of March. So we've got Javier Sindarov, Matthias Blubaum, Anish Giri, and Ramshbabu Praggnanandhaa as well. And we've got young talents like Yazkan Edomush from Turkey. It's prodigy, it's incredible. Abdesatorov, Vincent Keymer. Anyway, you'll see the full lineup if you go to their website. So in this first video, I'm going to show you extracts from 2 of the games, and I'm going to show you one complete game, Erigaisi against Praggnanandhaa, which is pretty dramatic, and I've got a really nice think and drink moment for you in that game. So here we go, round 1 of the Tata Steel Masters. First up, let's take a quick look at the game between Hans Neiman, white, playing against Vladimir Fedoseev, playing black. So quite a tense position from the Petrov. You can see there's some pressure on that knight on e4. And the queen would like to take on b7, but there's a big discovered check there. That would be a disaster. So Neiman played g3. Now it's actually a threat to take on b7. Fedoseev should simply defend that. But instead, he took on c5. So obviously the knight threatens these 2, so that has to be taken, and then bishop takes bishop. Has black won a pawn? No, because queen takes b7. And here, Fedoseev thought for some time and resigned. He had completely blundered. So hard to say what his train of thought was, but basically white threatens to take the rook in the corner. And if knight a6, which is defended by the bishop, white has a winning move here, and that's knight e5. Presumably he'd simply overlooked this tactic. So that can't be taken because the bishop is pinned. If the queen retreats to d8 or c8, well, something like this, and that bishop drops. And if rook takes knight, then the rook can be taken. Check. And actually, the queen is not in any danger here. It can get out very easily. So white is the exchange up, and actually, it's a pretty simple win here. Once this bishop moves and you challenge on the e-file, yeah, black is just lost here. Incredible. So Hans Neiman won in 16 moves. A real present for him. Okay, let's move on. In fact, there was another gift. Let's look at the game between Vincent Keymer and Anish Giri. So this was quite a calm start to the game, but Keymer was perhaps pressing here. Came from a queen's gambit accepted. And here Giri should play knight d5, and well, white should be a little bit better here because of the queenside majority. But instead of that, Giri took the pawn on d4 straight away. This was very unfortunate because Keymer, instead of taking on b7, just dropped the rook back. A simple double attack, and white wins a piece. So Anish Giri resigned. An absolute shocker. I think it's one of those positions where you simply assume your opponent's going to take here and you forget about a retreat. So 2 incredible blunders already in round 1. But now I'd like to take you through a full game. So Arjun Erigaisi against Rameshbabu Praggnanandhaa. So of course these two are at the top of Indian chess, know each other incredibly well. But Pragg is the one that has qualified for the candidates. And they have an interesting clash of styles because I think of Pragg as being a fairly even player. Of course, he can play brilliant attacks, can play very aggressively, but I think quite a classical player, whereas Erigaisi can play some really wild stuff. And that's what happened in this game. This was a wild game. So Queen's Gambit accepted. E4, well already this is a very sharp variation. You know, you can just play knight f3 here and e3 or e3 straight away. But no, e4. So a really ambitious move. And e5, so black strikes back in the middle. Now, of course, you don't want to take this because that'll displace white's king. So knight f3, this is well-known theory. And then white takes on c4. So it almost looks like a king's pawn opening now with the bishop here. You know, something like a strange kind of, you know, Scotch gambit or something. And black has to be very switched on here. So knight c6. And now the main line, which has been played in hundreds of games, is castles and then bishop e6. And white takes here. And it's pretty wild. But yeah, it's been played quite a lot. But instead of castling, Erigaisi played queen b3, attacking f7. And this does, yeah, it does remind me of something like an Evans gambit, actually. So black is already under pressure. Bishop b4 check played. Knight d2. Queen f6. Castles. Knight e7. So if black can get the king to safety, then the position should be okay. But it's white's turn. And e5 played here. Hitting the queen. Queen g6. Now, Pragg was playing reasonably quickly, but after this, I mean, this is very unusual. This has been seen before, but it's a very unusual continuation. Queen h5, so the queen has to keep hold of the f7 pawn, and then knight f3. So these knights look very strange. You know, when this knight is kind of on the edge of the board, it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. But the problem is that black's queen is running short of squares, and white would like to play h3 and g4. And then you can see it really is in trouble. In the meantime, this bishop is a little bit loose. Black still has to bring the king to safety. So there's a lot going on here for black to negotiate. And Pragg was clearly feeling a little bit uncomfortable because he thought for half an hour in this position. And in fact came up with a move which wasn't the best. Now, as Erigaisi revealed after the game, in fact a5 is the best move. I mean, I would say this is not at all obvious to try and push this queen away from the diagonal. But Pragg played bishop a5. And then h3. Okay, take care. This move might be happening. And this is already very, very tricky. d3 played. I mean, this is a kind of distraction move. You know, looking to play d2. So that was taken. And again, this g4 is once again a threat. So the pawn in the middle was taken. But this is risky when the king is still in the middle. And this knight came back, hitting the queen, which hopped back to d6. Of course, black would very much like to exchange queens here, which would take a lot of the pressure off. But Erigaisi avoids that and comes back to b3, attacking the pawn on f7. Now, here is a big moment in the game. Of course, it's possible to castle here, but after rook d1 and rook d1, an important move. Watch this, bishop f7. There's trouble because if rook takes, rook d8 is mate, and after king h8, so white has the pawn back, and this endgame is very uncomfortable for black because you can see that all white's pieces, I say all because that rook is going to come over very quickly. All white's pieces are in play, and there's moves like knight e5 or knight g5 looking to get in on f7. This is very uncomfortable for black. And that's why Pragg played bishop e6. That was taken by Erigaisi. So that slightly disturbs the king once this pawn has reached here. Right, here is where I'd like you to have a think. I'm going to have a drink. So, well, I'll see you after this this word from our sponsors. I'll see you in a moment. Good luck. Tired of playing bots that either crush you or make silly blunders? Nocti is a chess AI that plays like a real opponent at your own level. Nocti is designed for practice. Just pick your opening and start playing, or let Nocti decide. You get instant colour feedback and puzzles based on your mistakes. Set up any endgame position and prove that you know the technique. Learning through gameplay is so effective. Try it out with Nocti. PowerPlay viewers can receive a 20% discount on Nocti's annual membership if you click on the link in the video description and enter the discount code PowerPlayChess. Right, on with the game. White to play. What did you come up with? Well, of course it's possible to take on b7. But then the king gets out. And, well, I mean, I slightly prefer white because, you know, black's pawns are a bit messed up. But if the bishop reaches b6, then there's going to be counterplay. So that's not best. The best move here is rook d1. A very important move, and this starts to chase black's queen around again. Now black would love to be able to play knight d5, but there's a problem. Queen b5 check picks up the loose bishop. So queen b6 played. And now check. And this is extremely awkward for the king. Of course, the queen can't block because the bishop hangs. If the knight blocks, that queen switches over here, attacking these two, and if castles, then rook d7, and this is absolutely crushing. You can see with the 7th rank exposed, it's just gone horribly wrong. So c6 played by Pragg, and now a very simple and very powerful move. White's queen centralizes, attacking the pawn on e6, and it leaves black's queen way out in Siberia, cut off from all the action in the middle of the board. If black castles, this is the move that Pragg would love to play, but then you take here, the rook comes in again. Black is just getting hammered here. It's all with tempo. And then knight e5. And this drops. Let's go back. So that's why Pragg decided just to give the pawn on e6 and bring the queen back into play. So queen takes e6. Queen f5. So at least The queen returns to the middle, and again, black would love it if the queens were exchanged, but no. Queen e2. And the problem is that because of this pin, black's king is stuck in the middle. If castle's kingside, then the knight on e7 just drops. And of course, castle's queenside is impossible because of the rook. So the king is stuck. And this is disastrous for black. Pragg came up with rook f8. Not a pleasant move to make. It means the king is never going to be able to castle. Now, let's see what happened. Rook d3. So it could be that that rook is going to swing across to e3. Let's see. It also means that this knight is defended if white pushes with g4. So bishop b6 played. Bishop g5. So mate threatened on e7. Rook f7 defends. g4, that queen has been plagued in this game. And then rook e1. So you can see, I mean, simple moves. But there's a terrible lineup now on that knight on e7. And it's really only one way to keep going for black, and that is to play bishop takes f7. Bishop takes f2 check. Now, not queen takes because that rook hangs, but king takes, queen g5. Okay, there's a pin here, but king g2. Simple move, just stepping aside. So again, the queen is attacked. Moves to the side. Knight e5. Hitting the rook, which moved up, and now, fantastic move, knight d7. Once again, the queen is hit. Queen g5 and queen e6, and the threat is queen g8 check. Remember, there's a pin here, and mate follows. And black is utterly lost. For example, if rook f7, then knight e5, and again. Well, this is really nasty. That's actually mate on the back rank. And, well, almost as a little joke, Pragg decided to castle queenside. But of course, stepping into the queen's line is fatal. Knight f6 check was the final move of the game. A nice discovered check. If king c7, then queen takes knight with check. You can see that black's position is collapsing completely. That's another rook, and well, I think mate follows shortly as well. So whoops. So let's just leave it in the final position after knight f6 check. Pragg resigned there. Absolutely crushing victory from Erigaisi, and in many ways absolutely typical of his style. You know, he loves sharp positions. And he caught Pragg really nicely with his slightly unusual move, queen b3, which Pragg was obviously a little bit unfamiliar with. And yes, this very unusual idea, because white's knight looks very oddly placed there. But, as we saw, it's actually fantastically dangerous for black. So there we go. Tata Steel Masters got off to an absolutely cracking start. 3 decisive games. In fact, there was almost another one. I haven't had time to show you the game between Sindarov and Gukesh. Gukesh played a brilliant game, came so close to winning, but with a very nice queen sack, but didn't quite do it. So there we go. I'll be reporting back. See you for round 2.